Hey everyone, it's Alan over at Cobblers Plus, and today we're going to be working on a pair of these Adidas here. Look at that. That's what's called dry rot. Actually, there could be another term. There are two different types of rotting, and I only remember dry rot as the proper word always. But we're going to be resoling them and doing some custom work on it. So come join us, check it out, and see what we're going to be doing. So thank you for joining us, and as you can see, this whole thing is just crumbling off, and at the moment we're not 100% sure on what kind of sole this gentleman is wanting, but we are going to at least build up the main base off of it. But first things first that we have to do is tear off this sole. Oof. Where are my pliers? If you're new to the channel, be sure that you're subscribed and hit that notification bell icon as well. But let's start by, this is going to be a messy one. If you've seen my Nike Resole video, this is actually the same gentleman. He likes some of the more unique stuff, and these things are really shot. Looks like, from what I can tell, it's got a different type of foam underneath for the cushioning that I may be able to pull off to take off at least majority of the sole without having to actually cut, as long as it cooperates with me. It never does it? Look at that. Yeah, so there's that different foam there. Doesn't want to cooperate well enough. Tell you what though, for now, at the moment, it looks like everything is coming off a little bit easier than the Nikes did for sure. However, the dilemma is there's a little bit more super glue in here that it looks like the gentleman may have put in there to try to fix it up, or maybe someone. Oh, I think it's cooperating. Ha, it did cooperate. Look at that. Got majority of that off. I have to re-angle the camera, don't I? Look at that. Yeah, it's coming off in pieces. Alright. I have to do a little bit of stitch work, possibly. Yeah, it looks like right there. So I gotta be careful taking that section off a little bit. Yeah, see the stitching right there came undone, so I'm gonna have to do a little bit of a zigzag stitch. It's coming off. And some of you might think that I can sand it and it'll be faster. It's good thinking, but however, these materials that have a tendency to rot like this, they actually melt under friction very quickly, like quicker than the sander can take off the material. So the majority of this I have to try to remove, if possible, by hand. And then whatever's remaining, I'm kind of forced to try to sand it, but it gets kind of messy. So looks like a lot of it is coming off though fairly okay. But Soul, however, so a little bit of mystery because John is still trying to decide which Soul actually wants out of the at the moment, so it comes by to take a look at it, middle of the space to work off of. Okay, let's go. Alright, so it's coming off right. I guess I kind of steel brush, I have to clean off all this old glue and mini gunk and stuff as much as I can. I'm actually going to get all of it off before getting ready to stitch it. But obviously, I take the other shoe first as well. So, yeah, see, it feels like there's just a little bit of super glue just holding some things here, possibly. So, all right, went from that to this here. Gives you a bit of an idea there. While I'm at it, I'm gonna go ahead and take out the insoles, because obviously, since we're going to be stitching and everything, I'm gonna need these insoles out anyways. And I used a little bit of glue in there, it looks like. Come on. Almost. There we go. Ha, insoles. Alright, so those are all out. That way I can double check if I see any light coming through anywhere, if it needs to be reinforced with either an adhesive, a filler, or some glue. It looks like right in this area. You might be able to see it possibly on the inside, but it seems like there's a little bit too much of a gap there. So I'm going to use a little bit of filler. And yes, I'm going to do it before I do any kind of sanding. This is like a super glue based adhesive, but I use it as a filler a lot of times for little spots like that. There we go. Spray a little bit of activator spray to make sure that it dries up, because it does have a bit of a chemical reaction occur with the nylon in the shoe, and it gets really hot bad. So I want to make sure that's all fixed up. Make sure I don't see any other major holes. Not that I see. But yeah, other than that, right there in this one, I'm not going to do with the super glue. I'm actually going to do that zigzag stitch. So let me go ahead and clean these up some more, and we'll move on to the stitcher, and you'll see what that looks like. Alright everyone, so we're over here at our patch machine. This is a long arm patch machine here. Let me just readjust the stitch length. So go ahead and get these stitched up. So there's that split right there. Kind of a little bit of a tough spot to try to get to, but I think we'll manage. That area scrunched up a bit, but these stitches are usually done by a specialty design machine. Now for a repair shop, it's not possible for us to get our hands on one of those, just because they are designed for, after all, mass production, and we don't do enough of these shoes to make the expenses worth it. But these patch machines, that's why they come in handy so much, because they have a large variety of different angles and spots that they can get into. And do what needs to be done. pull out that inside thread. And voila. So I don't know if the camera will show, but there's a zigzag stitch going all the way across there, kind of like what these ones are all around. Everything else seems good. The other one's fine as well. So it's time to go ahead and start gluing up the, well, not gluing up, but getting this primed up and ready for the rand on them. So I'll get that glued up and we'll see when it's time to stick it. Alright, so we're all ready now to prime these. So this one we're going to be using something called Syntec. It's more of a primer type that we're going to use on it. We do want to, after all, use a clear adhesive since this is white. The normal adhesive, if it was a darker colored shoe, we'd be using is Jet Set, which we use a different set of primers or something depending on the material. But it dries on the yellow side, where Syntec and the other one, we call it CDC, it dries on the clear side. But still want to use a primer on these to get it prepared. And this stuff kind of works as an adhesive as well, but it works a lot better as a primer in combination with that CDC stuff. That's just kind of for some of the other cobblers out there that may know what I'm even talking about. It's not necessarily for everyone to know what it means. Alright everyone, so it's time to stick these on, let them dry. So first things first, I need to clip one of the ends because the ends are somewhat rounded like that and we don't want it to be rounded. So I'm just going to go ahead and clip that. And usually most materials we end up heating beforehand, but this is one of those that I have to apply on first just in case I have to kind of yank it off to realign it or something. And then I apply the heat afterwards. That's why I got that heat gun there next to me. If the camera sees it. Oh, that was Marcus. Okay. So the glue is just barely tacky enough where everything should stick long enough. When I apply that heat, the adhesive has a chemical reaction where it actually sticks. So for now, this is exactly what I need it to do, is just barely stick on here. Now I already did the first shoe just to make sure, see how everything's lining up and stuff, in case there may be some readjusting I need to do, but everything seems to have gone fairly smoothly. And I'm just letting it cure. So, as you can tell, it's just following that line right there. Now the trickier part is because the back of the heel, where that line is lower than the front, but the front part is also curved up, so I have to basically force the piece into position. Now it looks like there's also a little crack right there that I'm gonna have to make sure I take care of, but that'll have to be done later on. And it's just more of the it's not a structural crack. It looks like it's just that paint, because all the white colors that you find out there on any kind of footwear is acrylic based, so that's something that's more of a top coat. It sits over top of the material. There we go. Ooh. Oh, come on. See, now I gotta twist it again just a little bit. And it doesn't want to stay under that kind of tension again until I heat it up and press it nicely. There we go. Now there is a large extra piece. I'm gonna leave that until I get everything to stick nicely. The shoe last. Okay, heat it up. All hammered out very well. Okay, especially right at that connection point right here where it's going to connect. Now I am going to use a different adhesive as well to connect the two ends together, but I still want to make sure everything's kind of on the pressed down side. As far as cutting it goes, that extra piece, grab a razor here. There we go. Alright, set that piece aside just for fun. Never know, something might come up or might need it as a good example, or who knows, because I haven't had the white rend in that I've used yet. So alright, now as far as the connection right there, so you'll see right here, right where that split is, that I need to make sure is bonded together. Now you're never going to have an absolutely seamless and perfect connection, but you still want to try to get as close as possible to that. So I'm going to put this adhesive in here just a little bit again, wipe off some extra, and this is why my hands are covered in glue and paint and all this kind of stuff. I tend to wipe it off a lot of times with my finger because it's a little bit smoother. There we go. Alright, so got that there. Now this is going to be underneath that midsole there. So now I have to slowly push down on everything here. Okay, make sure that gets tucked in under there. Now these folds here that I have, that's a must. They're going to be somewhat cut off anyways. Otherwise, because it is bound. And then I just take the razor again, and just so that I take away some of the thickness of these little corner pieces here, cut out small chunk of it. Those little folds will really get in the way quite a bit if I don't take care of them. Now they're going to be sanded some more as well in order to get this all prepped for the midsole. And we're going to be doing that here in a little bit. We're going to let this cool off just a little while longer. Thankfully, this is one of those things that I can do all in the same day, so the midsole and the rand kind of dry because I don't apply enough friction with the sanders to have to let this cure so much overnight. I learned that fairly well with the black rand that I did on the Nikes. So let's see if I can pull this one over. I have to use just a little bit. Man, it's so glued well together that I can't open it back up. There we go. Just need to open up a small section right there. Put some adhesive in there. There we go. Hold that for a second. That spray, unfortunately, when I touch it, whatever's on my hands, it wants to transfer over. Thankfully, it's just on that very edge that's getting sanded anyways. So, at this point, we're kind of done there. So, I'm going to let this sit and cool just for a little while, and I'll see you back here in a little bit when it's time to get the midsole on there. Alright, everyone. So, got the leather midsoles over here. I did sand everything out. Let me grab this one instead to show you guys because it's a pain taking it on and off the last, but as you can see, sanded it out so it's a lot smoother. There's no little nubs sticking out and all that kind of stuff, and I got it all glued up. This just got pulled out of the oven. Let me stick the opposite side in, and then there we go. So got a hammer first. At this point, I'm done with this step here. I'm going to stick it under the press, and then I'm going to let it cure overnight, and then this gentleman's going to come in and take a look and see what kind of sole he wants on these, and from there we'll be able to move on and stitch and everything like that. I'm not going to trim anything off, any of this extra off until it's kind of cured, but I got to get it under that press so it starts to bond nicely. So we'll see you back here in a little bit when it's time to move on. Alright, everyone, so we're back here again with these, and I've got the sole kind of trimmed out a little bit. It's going to get just a little bit more trimming as we move along through the stages, then roughed up the bottom. It's a lot more rougher. No, that's not blood, that's paint and stuff. Hands get dirty, and then my workbench is a mess. But at this stage, we got to get it ready to stitch. And so usually with the leather soles, we pre-channel the sole and everything before we stitch it, or well, at least because we're doing a Blake stitch on this one, we pre-channel it. But because this is, after all, just kind of like the midsole, we don't actually need to channel it. In fact, it would be a bad idea to pre-channel this because the leather midsoles are much thinner usually than a regular sole. So I'm going to be using one of these here. It's a little small hand channeler, but it's actually going to only channel just enough to leave me a nice marking. Yeah, I'll get a little in the back today. Totes. Come on. Shoot. Slip right off. Yeah, so it just takes all the chunks like that there. But to make these channel grooves a lot nicer and everything, but the goal for me on this is that it's going to be kind of like my guide, because the machine's just going to try to take off and start stitching, and I want to make sure I have at least some kind of guide to follow. There we go. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see, but there it is right there. line there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one real quick, and then we're gonna move over to the stitcher, get it stitched up, and then start gluing up the midsoles and everything. These are going to be the next stage of the midsole, because we're gonna have multiple layers of these midsoles to really build it up nice and thick. So let me go ahead and do the other one, and I'll meet you at the stitchers. All right, everyone, so I got the first one stitched up. I'll show you here in a second. Let me just pull out these top few laces, because they are going to get in the way of this tongue opening up a little bit wider for me. Just need to take out just a few, and that's what it looks like right there, stitched up. So I could use a different color, but we had brown loaded up in here, and this is going to get covered up anyway, so no one's going to see it. There's nothing that could be done about, you know, making the stitches visible, in other words, because they're going to be covered. But changing out the thread on this machine in order to have something match on something that's not even going to be visible, it's kind of redundant. This machine's little finicky sometimes when it comes to changing out the thread, and you waste a bunch of other thread. But anyways, let's go ahead and stitch this guy up. Try to get it to align. Okay, here's the hard part. It's the transition. I'll show you guys at the end. Okay, clip this off, and that transition that I was talking about. So usually with a Blake stitch shoe, in this case this isn't even technically supposed to be a Blake stitch shoe originally from the factory, but with a Blake stitch shoe we only stitch up usually to like right under where the heel is, or maybe right at the ball of the foot here sometimes. And so this arm here, you can see how it's bent. I have to transition it so that it actually fits to be able to go around here and on the back of the heel, and it gets a little tricky sometimes. Sometimes it can even rip the thread and just gets a little finicky to do so, but I'm glad it went through just fine, no problems or issues whatsoever. But there we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this kind of cleaned off real quick, because there's little fine dust and stuff all over it, and then get it glued up and get the midsole on. So we'll see you back in a little bit. Alright everyone, so yeah, my table's a little bit messy. I've got a lot going on right now, but so I've got the blue crepe material on, as you can see right there. I've already got it sanded down so it's a little bit more leveled. So the goal of this one is that we're going to be doing is to have an overall height of about an inch with the midsole materials, and then we've got that sole obviously that's going on too, but we have to angle it and everything, because the goal that we're trying to accomplish is so that the blue is shown all the way through from basically the toe to the back of the heel here, and then the white portion, which I've got right here, this one's not the one that's in the oven, I've got one in the oven at the moment, will kind of be the wedge that gives it that nice taper all around. And then over top of that we'll go about 1/8 of an inch of a yellow crepe material as well, and then finally put the sole over top. So at the moment I'm basically building it up, but I have to make sure that I do each layer a little bit differently, because I have to make sure that everything's tapered out just right. And so like the toe here is going to be tapered down a little bit more, but I got to taper down just enough where now I can get the white portion of the midsole, and it's only going to come up to about like right here, so it doesn't actually cover the toe completely. Go ahead and switch this around in the oven, I guess. But Yeah, that's how it's coming along at the moment. The goal was to also have a little bit of a notch in the back of the heel and then tapered at the back of the heel as well. Kind of marked it out with a pen, but after kind of measuring things out, it looks like that part of the tapering and angles and everything is going to have to go mainly into the white portion of the lift, where the blue one is going to be pretty much strictly the wedge at the moment, and then it's going to taper down later on once we get the white on there. So it's a little bit of a process as far as going back and forth between angling it and seeing where I need to sand it more, where less, and everything. And it's pretty much by viewing of the eye, you know, well, not the eye, but just looking it over and then placing it down and seeing how everything's fitting and stuff. So it's almost hard to plan out ahead a few steps or anything like that. You almost have to do it as you go along, you know, just because this is something that's a little more unique, in other words, and so we want to make sure that we can accommodate everything, all 3 layers of the crepe, plus we've got the midsole, and then plus also the sole. We have to make sure we kind of get everything figured out where it's all laying as we go along, because we're sanding it all by hand, not a machine doing it all for us. Well, the machine does the sanding, but I still have to guide the shoe. So at this stage, I've got the other part of the lift here. And let's see, make sure everything's fitting on here just right. There we go. Voila. Hammer this out real quick. Thankfully, once this crepe is nicely heated up and everything, I don't always actually have to stick it under the press. When it's nice and warm like this, it's so malleable that I could just use hand pressure and everything, and that's plenty enough. Stick the other one into there. But like I said, we're going to leave a little bit of that toe because we're going to really round out that piece right there of the white crepe material. So I'm going to let this sit and cool for a little bit and then start angling it, and then I also have to get the yellow midsole crepe material cut out and everything, and then start working with that as well. So it's a process, but I'll show you guys throughout the whole process little by little how it's coming along to let you see what's going on with it. So we'll see you back here in just a little bit. All right, everyone, so I've got that white portion of the midsole on. As you can see, I've gotten that shape where the toe is more rounded. Got a little bit of a notch here, and then the back of the heel is notched out as well. The back of the heel, so far it's about 1 inch, and we've, well, just under 1 inch basically, and we've got the yellow midsole. I gotta hurry up and get this back in the oven for a second because this thing cools off really fast, and get that yellow midsole put on there. This crepe really heats up fast, and so I have to make sure this is all done fairly quick. Okay. There we go. So it's coming along nicely. Let that cool off for a little bit because, again, this crepe here is actually a little bit of a higher density than the rest of them, so once it cools off, it hardens a lot quicker and everything, and it does that very quick. So I'm going to let this cool for a few minutes, and then I'll be able to trim that up and then start prepping the soles, and also I'll show you guys what the soles look like and why we have to prep them beforehand as well. Alright, everyone, so I've got the yellow on here. It's coming along pretty nicely. Got it kind of sanded out just a little bit more at the toe as well, and the back of the heel, because otherwise, since it's curved in such a way, it's going to end up looking a lot thicker, and I want it to be a little bit thinned out. So I've got that part taken care of, and now I've got the soles here. Like I said, I was going to mention that we got to prep the soles because, as you can see, there's some smooth spots that are kind of glaring right here that still need to be sanded out. Now this sole obviously is shaped more for like a running or tennis shoe style, where this one's going to be, well, obviously a tennis shoe style or a basketball shoe style, but it's got more of a rounded toe instead of the more pointed toe like that. So I got to make sure to try to get that Vibram sole as centered as possible. Obviously that's a little difficult to do sometimes just because of the way these ones are designed. They're very tapered out right there in the arch area. So I've got it temporary marked down to see where it's going to go, but I still have to take this to the sander, so most of those markings are going to disappear and I'm going to have to remark it. But I want to at least show you guys what it's going to look like so that I get the toe and the heel to fit in, so we can get that Vibram sole as centered as possible. You can see that indentation of the Vibram sole right there. And yeah, but if you're wondering which sole this is the Vibram 1474 model right there for you. So it's a little bit of a lower profile style right there, and it's great for running shoes. It has a great grip because of the triangular patterns here. Triangles tend to be a great pattern for grip, actually, surprisingly. Considered all, you know, if these were squares, they actually don't grip quite as well. It's kind of an interesting concept, depending on the material. However, we do have what's rated by a third-party system, where the pattern that's used for a non-slip material that's designed for like chefs and restaurants and everything like that, they actually use squares for those, but the material is very different and the very design of it is actually more rectangular as well. But triangles are actually a phenomenal grip pattern for a bit more of a more durable material such as this here. Originally we were supposed to use a different color. It's called Rosa, or it's more of like a red color. However, not only our suppliers but even Vibram was out of stock of that red one completely. I guess they released only a small batch of it and didn't end up making more, so we're going to be using the the black version. The red version is from the Soul Factor lines, and they had a few other model or colors available in that Soul Factor line, so they were kind of like experimental type of thing. And unfortunately we only had a couple of pairs come in and we used them up already, and all of our suppliers and everyone else is out of stock of them, so we're going with the black. But let me go ahead and get this one prepped up. We're going to get ready to start gluing everything up once it's all prepped and go from there. So we'll see you back in just a little bit. Alright everyone, so I've gone through around a few spots. There were like little areas around the shoe that needed a little bit of attention, so I'd gone ahead and used the Angelus white acrylic paint here. Some of you may not know that white is actually a color that no matter what brand you get of dyes, they're all acrylic based if they're white, because it's impossible to get white on leather, so you have to have an acrylic in there of some sort. At this stage though, I'm going to get my Saphir Bearded Cure neutral color here for the leather midsole to kind of make sure I get it sealed up. At the same time, I'm able to kind of give a nice finish for the crepe material too, because after all that sanding and everything, it looks just a tad bit roughed out and stuff, so it gives it a nicer kind of gloss finish, in other words. But if you're wanting the Saphir Bearded Cure or the Medal Dior version, you could actually find that on our website at CobblersPlus.com, and you can just order through there. The Angelus acrylic paints, however, we don't have listed on our site, just because there's a lot of weird pricing going on between us and Angelus and stuff, and with all cobblers, so it's kind of not practical for us to even technically retail it. So what I can do, however, is I have an affiliate link down below. I'll leave in the description area, and definitely check it out. Angelus has a lot of cool, great products for sneakers, especially for care and maintenance and everything. Your Saphir products are going to be a little bit better for your nice high-end leather shoes and stuff, dress shoes and boots, exotic skins. But for your kind of more athletic style shoes or anything, Angelus is definitely going to be my pick for that. I haven't really done a video on Angelus in general as far as much of their products, but I should probably try to get around to that. But in the meantime, definitely click that link down below for the Angelus products if you want, and check out what kind of stuff they have. They have the easy cleaner kits for suedes and nubucks, which are great, and then they have the acrylic paints. They have a lot of colors, like a lot. I mean, we don't even have access to all the colors that they have available either through any of our suppliers as well. So definitely check it out if you have like a limited edition Jordan or something like that, or something maybe that's kind of like hard to find. There's a good chance Angelus might already have an acrylic paint for at least touch-ups and stuff like that. So check that out for sure. But at this stage, I'm pretty much done with the shoes. I had gone through and conditioned the uppers before I did the acrylic finish on it. It's kind of redundant almost to try to condition white leather of any kind, just because again it's got such a thick acrylic finish over top. But I still try to do that at least a little bit, because there may be some areas where the conditioner can still get in and everything. So otherwise, hope you've enjoyed this video. Definitely give a thumbs up if you did, and share it as well. Helps the channel grow. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, or subscribe and hit that notification bell icon to be notified when we have new videos, because as you may have noticed, our shop, we're kind of all over the place with different kind of projects that we come across and everything. It's not just one category of shoes. As you can see, we have a lot of videos for like dress shoes and boots and all that kind of stuff, but we get our fair share of just not normal in the cobbler industry. One of the things that a lot of cobblers have noticed is that in their area they'll be concentrated on one category of, you know, type of footwear. Either one shop is getting more Western boots, another shop is getting more work boots, another one's getting more dress shoes. I get a whole lot and a whole little of everything, basically. It's kind of interesting and kind of weird, so you never know what you might see next. Kind of like a pair of Adidas getting a leather midsole and a, you know, Vibram rubber sole at the bottom. So you might definitely want to check that out. I did just a minute ago see and notice a little spot right there, so I'm gonna use a little bit of thinner. That's not from us, that looks like it's from the factory. See if I can at least touch that up a little bit. Sometimes these adhesives, unfortunately, that they use at the factories, after a period of time, they start to kind of have like this weird yellowing effect. If your shoes have that actually on the soles where they have that yellow effect, Angelus makes something called, oops, sorry, I hit the camera there. Angelus makes something called Sole Bright, which is really cool. If you apply it to the yellowing of the that occurred on the soles especially, you can put it into UV light or contain it in put in a nice container of some sort that really gets as much air out as possible, and then put it into UV light, or in the sunlight, in other words. It can really help restore the color. Otherwise, we do offer that as a service as well, because we have our UVC box to help sanitize shoes. Because it's a UV light as well, it won't just do the UVC treatment, it also do the UV light treatment if we use that Sole Bright on them. But anyways, there you go. I'll just fix up the laces a little bit, and there's a little extra cream there. Again, hope you enjoyed the video. Questions or comments, if they're shorter questions, leave them down below. If it's a longer, more detailed question, you can send me a message on Instagram, Facebook. Email has been getting a little bit more on the flooded side, so it's kind of getting overwhelming with emails, but you can still give us a try on that. It may take a little longer through emails, and unfortunately I don't get dinged. I turned off notifications on my phone for that, so is my wife, and basically all of us, just because that thing will not stop going off on emails. But questions or comments that are a little bit longer, definitely send a message through either Instagram or Facebook at Cobblers Plus on Facebook, or on Instagram it's CobblersPlusCO for Colorado. And if you want any services done, definitely check out our website, CobblersPlusCO. You can ship in through the website, but if there's something not listed that you're wanting done, such as this, just because this is one of those kinds of jobs that it's kind of impossible for us to list just because we have to be able to calculate the price of materials, because there's multiple layers in here. We've got the ran, the leather midsole, the blue crepe, the white crepe, the yellow crepe, and the Vibram sole. So that's a lot of layers of material that we have to calculate, plus, you know, obviously how much time goes in. If we're doing additional kinds of treatments or adjustments to it or anything, it can definitely either add on to the price or reduce the price depending on what might be done. So it's basically impossible for me to list these kinds of jobs on our website. So what you can do is, if you don't find what service, you know, one of the services that you want done, again, you can give us a call. It might be easier to call it, and if we say we'd like to see a picture of it, then we'll ask you to either text it to one of our phones or email it to us, and then from there we can take it, and you can just print out that little PDF form that we have on our website and ship it in, and then we'll kind of take it from there and contact you. So long story short, just give us a call if you're wanting a job done kind of like this one that's not even listed on our site. But again, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure you're subscribed. It really helps the channel grow. And for any of the Angelus products, check out the link below, or you can find the link to our website at CobblersPlusCO, as well as all of our other links for Facebook and Instagram down below in the description. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.